Squeeze, 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 squeeze. I read Apprentice to the Villain, which is the sequel to Assistant to the Villain, and there will be a third book. Cannot be read without having read the first one. I thought going over my notes was going to be enough. I wish that I had reread the first one instead so that I was fully ready for this second one. It starts right where the first book leaves off. This book just makes me fucking squee the whole time. I love this book. So this world is super fun. This author is super quirky. There is a lot of innuendo. There is a lot of, oh my gosh, I can't believe you. It is clean. There's no sex. And I love it. And I love it. You've got the villain and you've got the assistant who in this book becomes the apprentice, as her wanted poster goes. Actually, it's Tristan and Evie. They are madly in love with each other. He is the grumpiest of grumps and she is the sunshiniest of sunshines. This one is an adventure tale. All of the relationships that were established in the first book play out in this second book. The plot thickening, the adventure that they go on, the relationships that were established develop even deeper. There's some, God, do I ruin it? I don't want to ruin it for you. I don't want to ruin it because I know when I squee because of a moment, I don't want to ruin it for you. I don't want to ruin the squee. When I'm annoyed by a moment, I want to ruin it for you. I'm a bit of a bitch like that. I do apologize. The magic system in this world is pretty easy to follow. It's just fantasy. All of it is fantasy. It's totally made up. It's very insular. It's very small in terms of where they go. So you don't have to deal with this big epic tale. It is a very specific situation that they're in. I adore them. I love the will they, won't they of this story. I love the fight that both of them are in with their feelings and against their feelings. I want so much for them to live happily ever after because they are the perfect example of opposites attract, which is inherently everything about Grumpy Sunshine. I'm mad that I have to wait so long. And I am mad at myself that I didn't read Assistant to the Villain before I read Apprentice to the Villain. I should have. I read it when it came out and I haven't read it since. I intended to read it again and then I didn't. I got too excited for the second book and just went into it not refreshed. We get insight into more of the characters in this book, specifically Becky, who is such like a totally separate grump from the first book. And
talk to me.
If you're someone who doesn't want to wait for resolution, I would buy this book because it's adorable, but maybe wait to read it until the third book comes out. Expected publication over a year from now. Ugh, that hurts my soul. Definitely morally gray. He is the villain. It is set in this totally different world. So if you like morally gray, but you're over the mafia situation, I highly recommend this, as long as you don't mind no spice. I can't wait. I can't wait for it. I read Cruel Princes and then The Darkest Prince by Jillian Frost. I'm going to talk about both of these books together. Cruel Princes is book 1, and then I saw that there was The Darkest Prince, which is a prequel. It is not actually the prequel. It was written after these books. I lost my mind because the first book definitely feels like you're missing something. What's going on? There's a lot that you don't know. And I think it's written intentionally because you want to learn what happens as this goes on. I thought I was just missing information. And so I then read The Darkest Prince. That was a mistake because I feel like it ruined some things. If I had read that first, it would have changed so many things. I would have been incredibly confused. There are a couple other books in that Cruel Princes series. Maybe wait until I finish all of them for this. The basic premise of The Cruel Princes is there's this woman. She recently graduated college, so she's like 22. So yes, Alexandra, and she has been promised by her grandfather to wed the sons in this family. There are 2 biological sons, Luca and Marcello, and then 2 adopted sons, Bastian and Damien. And they show up and they say, yep, it's time. We're taking you back to our hometown and you will be with us forever, blah, 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 blah. Basically kidnap her. They take her to their house and it's all super sketchy. There's organized crime. It's not mafia. It's organized crime of some secret society-ness. So if that appeals to you, absolutely. It is dark, kidnap, right away, dark romance for me, immediate dark romance. And her relationship with them is very complicated. There's a history from high school that we're not really privy to. They basically left her alone for college and are now back to claim her as the bride, but they're all gonna share her. It's a great big polyamorous clusterfuck. This book is high-ish in spice. Her virginity seems to be a really big deal to them. Y'all, like, this is deep down the dark romance rabbit hole. If you're not a dark romance person, this might not be for you, because there are a lot of things that are very typical in dark romance that take place in this book. So I got through this book. It ends on a cliffhanger. Shit's gone down. And I thought, I feel really lost. Maybe I should read this prequel. So I went and read the prequel, The Darkest Prince, which is Damien and Bastian. It's entirely in Damien's point of view. Cruel Princes is in all 5 of their point of view. Everybody gets a point of view in that one, but The Darkest Prince is Damien only, and it's his relationship with Bastian and then also Alexandra, and a little bit more insight into how the 4 of them work as brothers and how their relationship has progressed with Alexandra. That book starts in high school and goes until when they go to get her. Now, the thing about this book, The Darkest Prince, and Damien is the Darkest Prince. If you read Cruel Princes, or if you've read all of them, he is the darkest one. It doesn't feel like it was written as a book. There are lots of chapters. It feels like it was written as a Patreon serial. So many facts are repeated. For example, when Alexandra shows up in their hometown, she's incredibly skinny. She'd been living with her mother. She was neglected and malnourished. As the years progress, she is well fed. She curves out. She does the thing that you do when you are well nourished. But I don't know why the statement of, oh, she's filled out since high school, had to be repeated so many times. I want to continue with this. I realize I have I'm definitely into my morally gray dark romance why choose situation. I kind of like that. I think this might be my gateway drug to dark romance. If you remember, Ruin My Life by Luna Pierce was one of those. The reason I'm talking about these 2 books together is because I would say read Cruel Princes. You can save The Darkest Prince. I'll decide when I'm done with the series where to put The Darkest Prince in my reading list, but I don't think you don't need to read it before Cruel Princes. I don't even know if I needed to read it after Cruel Princes. I read this book because Great Gatsby plus vampires. I thought it would make me like The Great Gatsby more. It doesn't. I think I've just realized that story does not appeal to me whatsoever. Didn't appeal to me in the original, and I haven't found a retelling of it that makes me go, of course, that's what it all means. No, thank you. So the premise of this is Great Gatsby in a different way. So Daisy graduated from college and she had her boyfriend, but he cheated and she left and she's devastated. And then she's back home. Turns out this dude throws lots of parties. His name is Jay Gatsby, and they were friends from before her family had money when they lived in a different place. He got his money by being a vampire. Y'all, it's not that complicated. It didn't hit me in the feels the way that I thought it would when you say vampire. It just didn't. I don't mind the way that the vampires were created and their kind of shtick. It's science, not magic. So vampires have only been around for 40-some, couple decades in this world, even though vampire lore has existed for hundreds of years. It put it more into sci-fi than PNR. Jay and Daisy just feel young. We're gonna go to these parties. There's a lot of privilege. There's a lot of talk about that. Oh, but there is weird PNR because it turns out Daisy can control people with her voice. That was such a strange add-on to me. It didn't make sense. I don't understand why vampires are science, but it turns out sirens are real and Daisy is descended from some. Threw me for a loop. Ultimately, this is a miss for me. The more that I think about it. 3.25. It was fine. I'm going to give it more props for vampires than anything else. But it's also lightly spiced. It tries to set up the weird mystery of like, what is Jay? And then it's revealed and it's like not the biggest of deals. I feel like all of the dramatic tension just kind of fizzles. It doesn't feel released in any way that is meaningful or makes me care. There are other books in this series, other retellings. I think Beauty and the Beast is one. I don't know if I care. It was fine. Like, is this a poorly written book? No. Is this one that I would say go read above others that I have read recently? No. If you're obsessed with The Great Gatsby, go. You're gonna have a lot of fun with this, especially if you don't mind it being played with. But for me, as someone who doesn't feel a deep connection to that source material, who reads a lot of PNR, and this doesn't feel like PNR, I could live without this book. They talk really flowery about their connection to one another, and I'm not going to say they don't have a connection. They get along really well. Thinking back to it, I just kind of feel blah. Sorry. Look at her. She's so spicy. Talia Hibbert just did it again with the fake boyfriend fiasco. I read The Princess Trap back in February, and it just blew my socks off. Blew my socks off so hard. And this one did not disappoint either. As you can imagine, it is a fake dating scenario between Arya and Nick. Arya and Nick meet at a wedding for Arya's friend at Nick's family's hotel. He is running from an old one-night stand who will not take no for an answer. They end up meeting because of this mutual friend, and the mutual friend kisses Nick. The woman doesn't leave, and so Arya kisses Nick. Yeah, it's really funny. But he falls so hard, so fast, and just has no idea how to keep her. He finds her the next morning, and she is not interested in dating. I think she's very dramatic. She reacts very strongly to things instead of thinking them through, instead of sitting and talking about it. But I do understand why she's taken a break from dating. I don't know if it's terribly important for this review purposes, but it is a valid reason. She has some trauma that she's working through. So I do understand that. Somehow Nick convinces her to be his fake girlfriend for this week-long trip he goes on with his friends. He is a newly retired football, so soccer for Americans, football, because that's the way that I say it, so that Americans don't get weird, from the UK, who is Greek, and he and his teammates go to this house in Spain for a week, and he asks her to basically be his beard because he can't say no and needs someone to be his girlfriend. Oh, and by the way, he pays her £350,000 to do this, so, there's that. He uses this really as an excuse to get close to her. He can't figure out how else to get her near him, to be in proximity to her. So he devises this forced proximity situation so he can woo her. It's not just to bed her. It's because he has fallen so hard so fast. The book is very short. It's very short. You see, like, itty bitty. I think it's less than 300 pages. Oh, it's less than 200 pages. Less than 200 pages. So quickie read. Even though it's quick, I still felt like I got a whole story. I feel like there was some high drama where there didn't need to be, which is fairly typical of this novella-like length, but the resolution happens very quickly as well. There's a really nice scene when they get together. It's lower spice than I expected. It feels low spice because there aren't a ton of opportunities, but I rated it higher because it's a novella. And so you're getting all that spice within less than 200 pages. You might get low spice 2-3 scenes in a 350-page book. Is very different percentage-wise than 2 to 3 scenes in a 200-page novella. There are a lot of toys in this book. Arya is a fan of the toys and brings them with her. It's, if you want the quotes, go to my IG because I post quotes in my feed there. But oh man, she calls it her socks, her sex box, and Nick finds it and then helps her play with it. Oh my gosh, it's so fun. Nick is also, I want to just state for this record because there is some biphobia on the page. Nick is bisexual. He has been with both men and women. And there is a moment when someone else, not Arya, but someone else, says, well, he'll never be satisfied with you because he's bisexual, blah, blah, blah. That BS that we don't need to get into because, as I said, it's BS. I really like Talia Hibbert. I'm going to finish this trio first with The Roommate Risk before I move into the Brown Sisters series. I know she has another book. There are a couple others of her on my shelves. If you can see them in the background, I think they're somewhere on this side. But if you're looking for something quick, fun, spicy, Black woman, white man, this is, you got some. Have you looked at this cover? Like A+ cover.